Welcome everyone to part two of our virtual field trip work webinars. This is It's a Small World part two, letting students create virtual field trips. So if you were with us on Wednesday, we were looking at different ways that you as the teacher can provide your students with virtual experiences where they don't have to leave the home. So now we're going to look at, well, how can our students create their own, or how can the teacher create them for the students? So all of the things I'm going to show you, students can do by themselves. However, you as the teacher can also do it. So don't feel like you have to be a student to do this. I have fun doing some of this stuff, and you might also. So here we go. I'm going to start full screen. I will be coming out of full screen to show you some of the websites directly as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to come off of mute. You could also type them in the text box. If you would like to receive resources following today's webinar, please leave your email address in the chat box. This way we can have it on record to provide you with those resources. So why would students and why would teachers want to create virtual field trips, and what are some example projects that they can be doing? So creating a virtual field trip is not just looking at a map and saying, I'll go here, then I'll go here. Creating a virtual field trip has a lot more different aspects to it that we're going to talk about. So one project that I have successfully done with students in the past is I allowed them to create a road trip. I gave them a budget and I said, here is 3 options for a car. So you have an electric car that gets like 100 miles to the gallon, you have an SUV that gets 10 miles to the gallon, and you have that really fancy Ferrari that you somehow won in a lottery that gets 12 miles to the gallon. So I gave them all the numbers. That way they didn't have to like research the cars and all that. But each one had a rental price, each one had the gas mileage and all of that type of stuff. And then the kids would go into Google Maps, which I will show you in a next slide, and they would actually create their road trip, stop at their rest stops, stop at their landmarks. They had to do a little bit of research, obviously, about the locations. And it was just a lot of fun. And then they shared them with each other and they all took each other's road trips. Another option, again, using Google Maps, is to create a collaborative map. So just like any other Google Drive file, Google Maps, you can share the My Maps. And with this type of assignment, each student gets a state. And then within that state, they have to do research, find landmarks. This is a really good assignment for those younger grades that you normally would see these state projects in. The last one is famous scientists. If you're an English teacher, you might do famous authors, but let them create a map of the famous person's life. So for example, where was Albert Einstein born? Where was Albert Einstein working for the majority of his career? Where did he go to college? Where did he, make his greatest discoveries? They can do all this research, pin it onto the map, and then they can share it with their classmates. So those are just 3 really quick ideas that students can do. And there's a lot more. Obviously, your creativity, your students' creativity, all of that would come into play. So another fun option besides maps would be green screening. So this is an example of, I believe this was a 1st or 2nd grader. They created the diorama in one of those shoe boxes, those old-fashioned projects, and then using a green screen, they recorded themselves pretending to look around it. If you wanted to do green screening with your students, and obviously you don't have green screens in your house, any solid color background will work as long as a couple of things happen. 1, they can't be wearing the same color. So if you're standing in front of a white wall, don't wear a white t-shirt. 2, make sure the lighting is good and there's no shadows or patterns or anything. And then 3, have a camera. There are a few video options where they could edit the screen software after they take the videos. WeVideo is one of the most common for schools, and it is free until the end of the year, thanks to WeVideo trying to be helpful in this situation. So you don't even need to spend money on software for your students to be able to do green screening type of lessons. So just like this little girl is in a diorama, your students can put anything behind them. So your students can put a picture of Mars, and they can make a green screen video of themselves out there in, in space. They could be talking about the Artemis missions that are going to be starting soon, although those are really going to the moon, not to Mars. But they can go to these places, pretend they're there, make these videos, share them with their classmates. There's a lot of different things they can do with green screening. There's also the option, if you guys watch the news, how they put the little screen in the corner. So your students can do their own fake newscasts and they could be talking about their local area, or they could be talking about their favorite vacation spot or a museum, all types of stuff like that. So video editing is another really good way to take these virtual field trips and for your students to be creating these virtual field trips. Some of these softwares that I mentioned, like WeVideo, are pretty user friendly. They are very much click, point, and use. So now I want to show you My Maps, which is going back to Google Maps. My Maps is an overlay of a Google map, and it lets you custom edit whatever you want on that map. So for example, I searched the Liberty Bell, and when I first search it in the search bar, it pops up on the map just like it would in any Google map. But then you'll see an option that says Add to Map, and when you add it to your map, you now get special editing features. Your students can now go in there. They don't have to leave it listed as Liberty Bell. They can change the name. They can edit the details. So if you were doing that project, like I said, a state report, the kids could go in and they could label 5 landmarks within the state, add a picture to each landmark, put some details like, hey, the Liberty Bell was cast in 19, sorry, I did not mean 19. The Liberty Bell was cast in, I believe, 1775. If I am wrong, social studies teachers, please either tell me or pretend that I know what I'm talking about. But they could put those comments in there. So they could add the pictures, they could add the text, all of that stuff. And then because this is now a Google map, it is collaborative, just like every other Google Doc. So they could share it with their classmates. Their classmates can take these virtual trips, look at the pictures. They could also upload videos and attach YouTube videos. So if they wanted to, for example, go to Disneyland and put a picture of, Cinderella's castle, or sorry, Snow White's castle is in Disneyland. They could put a video of the fireworks. They could put a picture of the castle, whatever they want. You'll notice in my sample, it says 1 of 1 because they can put both pictures and videos. If they were to do that on their map, then when their classmates open up the icon, they can see everything. There'd be a little arrow to the side so they can go to the next. So there's a lot of different things they can do in these Google Maps. I didn't put an arrow on my slide, but this one right here is directions. So if you were going to be doing the road trip, you could actually have them map out the road trip between stop A and stop B. It would give them the mileage, and then you could add a math lesson in there, have the kids actually figure out their gas mileage, their distance, all of that type of stuff. So Google Maps, like I said, is a great resource. The website would be mymaps.google.com. It is also, if you go into Google Drive, listed as a other for new files. The next thing I'm going to show you is Tour Builder. And this one I put an animated GIF to show you how it works. So with Tour Builder, your students can create a tour. And unlike Google Maps, which is just stationary, Tour Builder will actually animate between the stops. So in this sample, they're going from Denver, Colorado to Chicago, Illinois. And when you click next, you'll see it pulls out to the map and then it zooms back into the next location. So Tour Builder just gives you that little bit of animation. It makes the field trip feel a little more real. This is really easy for students to create because, again, it is just point and click. They would click the create a new tour, they add their stops, they can search. There are a few samples. So this sample, for example, says service to scholarship. This one was actually someone in the military, showed from when they were a child in school to when they became a commissioned officer in the military. So that's why that's what it was called, was service to scholarship. And when we go out of the slideshow, I am going to take you into Tour Builder and show you some of the features as well. Google Earth is the last Google tool where you can create maps and activities. This one is also 3-dimensional. It is a little more complicated for both the students and the teachers though. So while I'm showing you it exists, This one would probably be more for your high school, your juniors and your seniors, the kids that are more, they could easily figure things out because there's not as many clear-cut directions on how to do it. If you were to create a new project, on the sidebar of Google Earth, it is the one that has the little pin on top of a square. And when you click on that, you'll see the option to create new or open a previous one. So we're going to come out of the slideshow now and we're going to look at some actual resources. So I am going to go to My Maps first because that's the one that's going to be the most user-friendly for all grade levels. All right. So when you come into Google Maps, if you go directly to maps.google.com, it will look like this. You will see the maps that you currently have. You could also look up ones that have been shared with you and ones that you don't own. So maps that are considered public within your domain, they might be listed there. Also, if somebody shared one with you, it could be listed there. Depending on how you have the window sized, creating a new map will either be on the top or you'll see a little plus sign on the bottom. If you notice, when I shrink my window, it disappears from the top and it goes down to the bottom. So just be aware that the Google website does kind of readjust depending on your screen size. So if you don't see it on the top corner, look on the bottom corner. So I'm going to click Create a New Map, and it will pull up a blank Google map. It does default to the United States because I am located in the United States, but this is a full map. I can scroll over and see other countries as well. If you want to just drop pins in there, you can, and to drop a pin, you would just click this add marker, or you can do a search. So for example, if we wanted to do a search for, I'm going to just stick with Disney because let's face it, I'm kind of have Disney on my mind right now. So I do a search of Disney and it pulls up Disneyland Park. If I click add to map, you will see Disneyland Park is now listed under my map and it gives me all the editing options. So again, I can come in and edit and I can change the name from Disneyland Park to Dream Vacation or whatever I wanted to call it. Click save. And now you'll notice instead of saying Disneyland Park, it still shows you that Google Maps has the address and the website directly for Disney, but it says Dream Vacation and I'd like to go here. I can then click on the picture, and from here, I can insert pictures, videos. I could do a Google image search. I could do YouTube searches. So your students can attach anything they want to that landmark. I can then do, instead of Disneyland, I can go to Disney World. And we know Disney World is all the way back in Orlando. I add this one to my map, and you could see they're both there. Now, if I zoom out and show you the entire country again, you will notice that the map has my two tags. So if I was a student and I created a map like this, I would have on the side all the places that I've tagged, but then when I'm zoomed out, I could see, and so can my classmates or whoever I share the file to, they can see all the landmarks that I tagged. So this is just how Google Maps would work. I have seen a lot of different ways of Google Maps being used. Like I said, the scientist projects. I've seen teachers actually share this document to all of their students. So you'd have to title it first. Obviously, I didn't title my demo. But just like any other Google file, they can share it to their class. They click send. It sends to everyone, and I just sent it to one of my demo classes. It sends it to everyone in that class. You click done, and now all the people who are enrolled in that class have access to this document. So your entire class can create a collaborative map together of all of their dream vacations, or they can do a current events and they could be talking about the coronavirus in real time. Like they could say, you know, this state has X number of patients today and this state has X number. So however you want to use it, it will work. And there's a lot of different functionalities that you can play around with. So I encourage you to try it. The last thing I'll show you in Google Maps is the measure distance. You can actually do math lessons. And this is kind of interesting too, because if you were to come to the draw line, where it says, for example, draw a shape, I can draw a box around Pennsylvania. And as you know, the earth is round, so maps tend to be flattened. I could drag this rectangle over another place, and it apparently is not working in my demo. Normally, it will stretch so that you can see. So for example, if I take that rectangle over Canada, it should get a little bigger because Canada's stretched out. And if I bring it closer to the equator, it normally gets smaller. So unfortunately, it's not working in this demo, but it normally does as I'm now dragging the squares. So I apologize that it wasn't working in the demo. It does normally work where if you drag the shape, it changes. The purpose of the box storage is so, like I said, normally it will change the stretch of it depending on how far from the equator you are, so that you can see that some shapes, because of the way that maps, when they flatten them out, they do tend to distort the shape of the countries. So you might think that Texas is, you know, the size that it normally looks on a map. But if you were to take Pennsylvania and drag it into Texas, it's actually Texas looks so much bigger just because of comparing the two shapes. So that's the purpose of dragging it. But like I said, it didn't seem to work when I just sampled it, so I apologize for that. As you know, Google does update stuff once in a while, so it is possible that that was a change that they've done. All right, so next I'm going to go into Google Earth, and I'm going to show you two different links for Google Earth. So the first link I'm going to show you, I did show you also on Wednesday, and that is the Google Earth for Education website. It is google.com/earth/education. And this is where teachers can find lesson ideas, resources, all of that stuff. I think I mentioned this on Wednesday. They have Carmen Sandiego built into Google Earth. So if you like to do some geography lessons, great way to do it with your kids and kind of bring back that nostalgia from the 90s of Carmen Sandiego as well. It also has resources, inspiration, all different things for you as the teacher to help you help your students. So next we're going to go into Google Earth itself. And in Google Earth, like normally when you log in, it will always start as the big blue marble. This right here, as I said, the pin on top of the rectangle is projects. And when you create a new project, it's going to create it in your Google Drive. And you could add place marks, you can draw lines. There's all different things you can do. There is a tutorial that you can watch. So like I said, it is a little more, it's not as user-friendly, it's a little more difficult, but there are a lot of different things you can do, and it does make those three-dimensional global field trips. Some of the satellite images are so crisp, it really does look like you had a drone flying over as it goes between the locations if you were to zoom in further onto the map. I would like to just point out one thing about the Google Maps satellite images, and that is certain locations have opted out of being on the satellite images for security reasons. So most government buildings, I believe the Disney parks as well, if you were to zoom in on them from the satellite images, it will just be a giant blur. And again, that is for security, and these companies or the governments have said to Google, don't put us on your maps. The satellite images are coming from legit companies such as NOAA, US Navy, all of these places. So these satellites are not owned by Google. So Google is just kind of taking all of these satellite images and piecing them together like a puzzle so that you as the end user can see these really crisp images. And like I said, the animation looks like a drone. It's that detailed. So I recommend playing around with that a little bit. I am going to show you Tour Builder because that's the one I think your students are going to have an easier time with. And I do want to show you things that your students can do. So Tour Builder is tourbuilder.withgoogle.com. I know that seems a little strange that it's not just google.com, but With Google is one of their domains. This is a legit Google product. So if you notice, it does say beta, and that's pretty much the difference between With Google and Google. Once it comes out of beta, once Google is positive that this is good, they're going to move it to the Google domain. I will also say, though, the fact that Tour Builder is in beta, it has existed for 3 years already. So even though it is still considered beta, it's not a brand new tool. It has been around, it has been tested and used. So what you would do as a student is, or as a teacher, is you would click Create a Tour. It's going to ask you to sign in because apparently it was not signed in. I apologize. I thought I did sign in already. So it's going to have you sign in. And it's the first thing it's going to say is name the tour. Then you click Create the Tour, and it's going to pull up the blank Getting Started. You could add an intro picture and a summary of what this tour or this field trip is going to be. And then you want to add your first location. So when you click Add a Location, it says Start Typing. So I'm going to type Philadelphia because that's where I'm starting from. And it zooms in on Philly and it says Add to Tour. I add it to my tour, and now it's asking me to enhance the story. So I could add photos and videos. Once again, it's giving me the option of my pictures, uploading pictures from my computer, or if I hit more, I have the search for images, search YouTube, etc. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a picture that your student took. It could be any picture. I'm going to take this lovely picture, not the one of my weird side face. I'm going to take the picture of the STEM playground, add that right there. I could put a date and time. So if my students were using this tour builder, again, I'm going to use the example of a famous scientist. They might put a picture of Albert Einstein as a baby, if they are fortunate to be able to find that type of picture in their research. And then they could put a start date of Albert Einstein's birthday. For those of you that do not know this, Albert Einstein was born on March 14th, aka Pi Day. So another thing to celebrate on Pi Day is Albert Einstein's birthday. The only reason I actually did know that fact. I don't know the year off the top of my head though. So then I would just put in the details, whatever I wanted to put. Scroll down, there's advanced options. This is coding. So KML is actually a language specific for maps. So I would tell your students just to ignore that for now. They're probably not going to know that language. But that's all you have to do. It automatically saved here for Philly. So then I would just go to add location and I could put the next location I want to put. So maybe I want to put New York. Or more specifically, instead of just saying New York, I want to say Broadway. So the more detail you put in the search, the more detailed the pin will be on its location. So now I add Broadway to the pin. And let's say again, I want to add a video, but this time I don't have a video. So I am going to do a search for images and type in Broadway. This is going to bring up a Google search of commercial reuse images. If you don't know copyright law, that is an important thing to kind of reiterate to your students is don't just steal other people's images. Make sure you have the right to use it. They always will be, when you do a search within a Google tool, it always does bring those copyright permissions. So you would put your image here. I saw a fleeting icon of add a tour. Where did you see a fleeting icon of add a tour? Was it when I
After
just
I
showed the
saw that
picture?
yellow line and you went towards Broadway, there was something,
Oh,
add something there, and it was confusing.
oh, okay. I apologize.
That's okay.
So, well, let's see if I'll add one more location. And let's say we're going to go from Broadway to, let's go to City Park or Citi Field. If you do not know, Citi Field is where the Mets play because Shea Stadium was torn down. So are you talking about this add to tour?
Oh, add to tour. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So you're
Yes.
going to press that, right?
Right. So if I want to add this as the next location, then I
Okay.
would click add to tour. And now you'll see it connected that yellow line and it gives me the place to add dates or information about the location. So I'm going to click done editing because I want you to see what the final tour would look like. And you'll see it says 4 of 4 because it always starts with your introduction. Your introduction zooms out and shows you the entire map as far as where you have landmarks. So if I had, for example, a landmark in Pennsylvania and I had a landmark in Australia, it will zoom out to show the entire map. Because I only have Philadelphia and New York, it just zooms out enough to show me Philadelphia and New York. So now I click next, and you can watch the animation zoom into Philadelphia, and it gives the information that my student would have written for that location. When I click next, the animation is going to zoom out, move to the next location, and zoom back in. So it really does give that animation. It shows the kids that stuff. And again, the kids are going to be adding their own pictures and their own descriptions of each stop on the field trip. So that's why I like the tour builder better than my maps, for the sake that that animation kind of makes it feel more like a field trip. They could also screen share it. So if they were to create their map, they can go into screen sharing software. For those of you unaware, Flipgrid is now having screen sharing capabilities. So you can create a Flipgrid where the students narrate their tours. So they create the tour in Tour Builder, they open up Flipgrid, create that screencast, and then they talk over it. So they could say, on my trip, I'm going to stop at Broadway and I really want to see your Dear Evan Hansen because I have heard amazing things about this show. After I go to Broadway, I'm going to go the next day. I want to go see the Mets play. So I'm going to go over to Citi Field. And it is super cool because if you go close enough in the parking lot of Citi Field, you could actually see the original home plate from Shea Stadium before they tore it down. So in the parking lot, when they repaved, they marked the parking lot with the home plate of the original Shea Stadium, which was located right here where there is now a parking lot. So that's the type of thing your student can narrate if they were doing a sharing of their tour builder through screen sharing. I am going to open up the webinar now to Q&A. If you have any questions about any of the tools I showed you, most of the good tools for building field trips are Google, which is the reason why I did not touch on anything Microsoft. Microsoft does have their own maps, but they don't have the tour builder and Earth and all of those tools. Please feel free to come off of mute or type a question in the chat box. If you haven't already, please leave your email address so that we can send you resources. Someone just said, in Tour Builder, can you add a slideshow? Yes and no. So you can't add a Google Slides, but in Google Slides, if you come up to File, and then in the download, you'll notice it has the pull down arrow. You can save your Google Slides as image files, and then they could use those image files in the tour builder. So it's not going to exactly be their slideshow, but they can insert slides that they've created. Does that make sense, George?
Yes.
Okay. And that's for anything. If they were to like design something in a Google slide, they can download it as an image file. So it's, as you can see, it says current slide. So if they wanted to do the entire presentation, they'd have to go slide by slide. But they can take those pictures from the slides. Any
How about
other question?
in
Yes.
My Maps? Is it the same?
In what?
My Maps?
Yes, My Maps is the same. You can't attach a file, but you can well, actually, that's not true. In My Maps, you can attach a file because you can put a link. So if I come back to the demo and I click on one of the locations that I put, of course, it's behind the other box. When I click on the edit pencil, if I remove the original details, actually, you don't even have to remove those original details. If I click the pencil, I could put a link in there. So if I was to, for example, go to my Google Slides and get the shareable link, I can come right here and I could post that link, and it is a hyperlink. So it's kind of a workaround. They're not able to put the slide directly in there, but they can link to it so that somebody can find it. And I believe you can do that same thing with the tour builder now that I said it. So if I come back to edit my tour, You can add links as well. So in a roundabout way, and of course the link didn't show, but in a roundabout way, you can post a link by doing something like that. So now if I finish the editing, you'll see on Citi Field, or actually, where was I was on Citi Field when I just did that. I don't want to make you all dizzy by going back and forth. It should have posted the link right there, but
I'm just
that's the
wondering.
workaround to it.
I'm just wondering now if you give them a link to your slideshow, would they be able to edit it?
To my slideshow,
Yeah, like the
if
one you.
you so all right, so when you're in that slide,
Oh, it's
if
still
you
there. That the options. Okay.
yes, because I copied the link from the slide to put it
Yeah.
in, so I put the link, not the editing abilities.
Mhm. So I have to actually put the link from above in there first.
Yes, if you wanted to put a hyperlink, you would have to get the link from your slideshow or from your Google Doc and then just insert the link.
Mhm. Right.